Hi, everyone. I'm Julia Cutler. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope you're all doing well. I'm joined today by Karla Brandau, who will be speaking about how to turn life's unexpected twists into lessons that move you forward. Welcome, Karla.
Hello, it's nice to be with you.
We are very excited to have you here today and to learn about making positive changes that move you forward. I'll give some quick housekeeping information for our audience and then introduce Karla. There will be time for questions at the end of the presentation, so please click the Ask a Question button below the video to ask your questions throughout the webinar. Also, as a reminder, the recording will be available tomorrow. Karla is a certified speaking professional. She founded her business, Brandau Power Institute, in 1986 and has researched and presented programs for Motorola, SAP, Nortel Networks, IBM, and Cisco. She regularly volunteers for local associations and has served as the president of the Georgia Speakers Association. As an author, she has written Wake Up the Winner Inside and 101 Time Management Tips to help organize people and energize their lives on a daily basis. Thank you, Karla, for taking the time to be here with us today, and I'll let you take it away from here.
Thank you, Julia, for that introduction, and welcome. Welcome to everyone who has chosen to join us today. I have a special message for you today. As you know, this is entitled Success is Knocking. And the question is, will you turn the knob and open the door? That is our question. But before we get into our content today, I want to ask you, I want to share with you that Thanksgiving is coming now. And as we go through Thanksgiving, I know that I am thankful, even though this has been a horrific year. I am very thankful for many, many things. And I hope that you feel that way too. No matter what distress that you have felt during the year, if you can be thankful for life and thankful for your family and thankful for the things that you do have, you will be on the path to a better 2021. So as we look at, will you turn the knob and open the door? My question is, let's go together. And do you have what it takes to turn that knob and open the door? Because now is a time to reflect, to reevaluate our lives, to look at our skills that we have, to look at our careers, to look at where we want to be in 2021, to set goals. And you may also take a look at your hobbies and see if this is a time when you can turn your hobby or something you really love to do into making money for you. So as we look at this, I don't know if you felt this way, but I have felt this way many times during 2020. Where is the help? Because we have had so many, the quarantine was so disruptive. We've had layoffs and lets downs, and we've been disheartened about so many things, and we've been depressed, and it's just like, where do we turn? So today I want to help you with these three things. I want to help you understand what stress is, how to build resilience, how to have coping skills for stress, and how to plan for a positive future. Those are our goals. Now I'm going to use a few cartoons, so I hope you can go along with these cartoons and find them humorous. But 2020 stress is like a red light flashing on your dashboard. And when I see a red light flashing on my dashboard, I panic. And I think that's what we have done in 2020 is panic. And one of the reasons we panic is because we don't know what's wrong with the car, and we don't know how to fix it, and we don't know how much it's going to cost. And so those are some of the things in similar ways. That's we've been experiencing in 2020. Now you can deny that there's a problem. We can just put a Band-Aid on that little flashing light, or we can get more aggressive and take a hammer and pop it out. Because if it's not flashing there, then ignorance is bliss. But I don't think that those are the right strategies, because left unattended, stress will get worse. And as you can see the car burning there, our lives can burn as well when we don't address what's happening to us. And we can liken this to a toothache. I don't know. I've been in a lot of dentist chairs, and I know that when I start to get a toothache, it's like, I think I ought to probably get to the dentist. And finally, I drag myself in, and it's probably at the stage of a root canal. So let's attend to the stress now. Let's get it handled and not let it go like a toothache. Now, I'm going to use a few more cartoons here to take us back to some of the beginnings of stress. It's like Harry Caveman is walking down a nice mountain path here, well-traveled, and all of a sudden he comes face to face with a saber-toothed tiger. Now, this saber-toothed tiger, he has two choices, right? He can flee or he can fight. He can fight that tiger. Now, if we pop the light out, if we put a Band-Aid over the light, that's like fleeing, in my opinion, from the problems that we have right now. If we fight the tiger, that means that we are making plans. We are reevaluating. We're looking at what the future holds. And so we start to build a better place for us in 2021. Now, as we look at this, after Harry Caveman fought the tiger, he could lay in his hammock and just get a nice rest. And the problem today is that we can't bop COVID-19 on the head with our backpack, with our briefcase, with our laptop, and then just, run around the neighborhood a little bit. So all the hormones worked out of our body, and then we lay down and take a little nap and get back up and we're refreshed. It doesn't quite work that way in today's world. And this brings us to the formal study of stress, the general adaptation syndrome. Now, the general adaptation syndrome was, you might say, birthed by Hans Selye. Hans Selye was a Hungarian, and he went to, he entered the German medical school in Prague when he was only 17, and he graduated first in his class. He also earned a doctorate in organic chemistry. So while he is working with his patients, he noticed all these different ailments in the body had similar symptoms. And he coined the phrase, or he made the phrase, stress. Now, this was in the late 30s, early 40s. And I always thought that stress was just part of our normal day life, but I didn't realize that it was just birthed in the 30s and 40s. And what he said about stress, which leads us to this graphic here on the general adaptation syndrome, is he says that you have stage 1, which is your stressor or alarm, okay? And this is when you have this alarm reaction. It's like coming face to face with that saber-toothed tiger. And then you have the alarm reaction, and it could be anything in your life, okay? But you have an alarm reaction to it, and all the hormones dump into your body. And then you go through stage 2, which is fight or flight. And this is where you are working through all of those emotions and getting them, all of those hormones out of your body in the fight or flight mode. And then in stage 3, like Harry Caveman, you have this exhaustion, this relaxation, and you go back to normal functioning. Now, what happens, we know when we're in this alarm reaction, when we're in the fight or flight, is that our adrenal glands will excrete cortisol and adrenaline, and our heart rate goes up, our breathing goes up, our blood glucose level goes up because we're sending more oxygen to our muscles, because it makes you a fighting machine. And that's why fight or flight is important, to get those hormones out of your body. And then it also brings you to this exhaustion. Now, as you look at this graphic, you can see that you have exhaustion and you have normal functioning, and you're supposed to be able to bounce back to normal functioning. Notice at the bottom of that, it says 0 stress equals death. And this is where we get our feelings and our thoughts about Thanksgiving, I believe, because I'm thankful that I'm still alive, and I like life enough that I'm really glad that I'm not dead, that I don't want to experience 0 stress, because I like being alive. Now, Hans Selye also says something else that I found very intriguing or charming, you might say, because he said that all aspects of life involve a little bit of stress. He said, even a passionate embrace. And I'm not willing to get rid of the passionate embrace just to get rid of my stress. And you probably share that sentiment as well. Now, what Harry Caveman enjoyed, or you might say experienced, was episodic stress, which means that he only saw the saber-toothed tiger once a month. So he would have this alarm reaction, and he would adapt, and he would relax, and he would go on with his life. Now, it's not that way for us today, because what we are experiencing is chronic stress, meaning you can see here that you have an alarm reaction, and it goes up, but it never comes back down to relaxation or full relaxation because we get another stressor. You may have, in effect, the saber-toothed tiger every hour of the day, some new stressor coming into your life. And so your stress just keeps going up and up and up and up to higher and higher levels, and you don't get that effective relaxation because your coping skills may not be there. And that's what we're going to talk about next. So with the chronic stress, you can see what Hans Selye was saying here. He was looking at the actions people have and the emotions, and then he was treating them for the body reactions. When I first started studying this stress material, I found it really hard to believe that my headache or my backache was related to my emotions and my actions. But it is. And one of the things that you can see on the slide here is that Hans Selye named stress actually distress, the destructive stress you feel, he called actually distress. And we have inadequate coping skills, and that's what leads to our negative actions, which are procrastination. We're kind of lethargic about what's happening in our life. You know, we eat, we spend. Maybe you use tobacco, alcohol, or drugs. Now, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, but boy, can I eat chocolate. Yeah, that's my action. And my motto is give me chocolate or give me death. Then we have the emotions, which drive people away. And I think this is what we have to be really careful of with everything that's happened to us in 2020, is this driving people away from us when we need them. We need them. But when we're pouting, lashing out, if we're so irritable that they can't stand to be around us, if we're hostile and we're cynic, we're skeptical, and we're angry, those are not the right emotions. And those are the emotions that give you the migraines, the heart disease, the ulcers, the depression, and the back disorders. And that's what Hans Selye was talking about in this response. So what we need to do is to find an equilibrium. As you can see here, we need to be able to go up, experience our distress, and then bring it back down and we hit another thing of distress, bring it back down, and we come to what we call normal functioning. This is our goal, is to find an equilibrium between our stress and our effective functioning. Now, another thing that Hans Selye did, remember he called it distress, where we just say distress and stress are the same thing. And he called positive stress eustress. So you can choose what word you want, but I'd like you to start using distress for negative stress or the destructive stress, and stress for positive. And the reason I say this is because any athlete knows that they perform better when there's a little bit of butterflies. And this doesn't just go for athletes, it goes for anyone that's performing, even if you're performing in the corporation, even if you're giving a presentation or having interviews with people or having meetings with someone. You've got a little bit of adrenaline in there, a little bit of stress, and that makes you perform at an optimal. You have an optimal, let me say that right, optimal and an exceptional performance. And on this curve, you might say, of distress, you can see that on one end, if you have no stress, you're lethargic and you have little output. In the corporate setting, I would say this means that you don't have any deadlines. Now, it would be nice if we didn't have deadlines, right? I mean, gee, no deadlines, but we could swing on our porch forever and never get anything done. But then you go all the way around and you have the destructive stress where you're burned out. And once again, burned out people are pretty lethargic. So they're burned out, and once again, there's little output. So what you want to do is as we looked at the stress that we really want, let's go back to that, this equilibrium. What you want is just enough stress to put you on the edge so that you can give exceptional performances. But you want to stay out of the lethargic and the destructive stress. Now, this is tied to a concept from emotional intelligence, in my opinion, and I hope you can see this analogy between this, because you have your higher cortex where logic resides, And then there's that little tiny almond-shaped part of the brain called the amygdala. That's where emotion resides. In fact, people like to call the amygdala their threat detector because hairy caveman would perceive this threat and the amygdala would take over. Now, notice on this graphic that the higher cortex is disabled. What I would like you to do today is take what I'm teaching you, take the coping skills that I'm teaching you to reduce that emotion that the amygdala will give you, the fear that comes from that. Because you have to use that higher cortex, that a logic part of your brain to go forward. So I'd like you to shut that amygdala down a little bit, unless you're using it for excitement and love. And I would like you to open up your higher cortex where we can think and reason. Now, this brings us to 5 predictable stages of grief. And you may have been experiencing this from when the quarantine first started. Way back in March and April and May, you may have been going through these stages of grief because of the things that we lost. Now, the stages of grief, if you can recognize this, are, of course, the death and dying syndrome, which was brought to us by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross worked with terminally ill patients. She was a Swiss-American psychiatrist. And she, after working with these terminally ill patients, she saw these predictable stages that people go through. And what I find interesting about it is that you have anger. You can be really angry about the circumstances. And I'm sure that we have all experienced anger in the last few months. Bargaining means that you're saying, well, I don't understand this. What's happening to me? If I do this, why won't this happen? Or I'm going to try this, and then maybe things will be better. Then you come down to denial. And when you come to denial, it's like, it doesn't exist. It's like popping that light out. And then you come to depression. I'm so depressed. Now, the thing I'd like to bring to you is that you can stay in each one of those stages for 10 minutes, or you can stay in that stage for 10 years. But, and you can bounce back and forth. You can be angry one day and in denial the next, depressed the next, but not until you get down to acceptance. And this is what Elizabeth Kubler-Ross found, that nothing positive will happen until you get down to acceptance of where you are, acceptance of what's happening to you. And then you can start using that higher cortex, that logical part of your brain, to think through what to do next. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever watched the reruns of the sitcom where we had Lowell, the sitcom Wings. I don't know if you remember Lowell, but he used to walk in with his bulging tool kit on his waist because he was the airplane mechanic. I don't know if you remember that, but anyway, he walked in one episode, and his high school coach, football coach, had just passed away. And he went through these predictable stages in like 2 seconds. He said, "I'm so angry. Coach Dweeb died." He didn't really die, did he? No, he didn't die. I'm so depressed. Oh, well, life goes on. And I thought that was kind of a humorous way to look at the 5 stages of grief and how we can get through them quickly. Now, as we go and we look at the winning formula, I want you to build resilience. So you have right thoughts plus right actions. And we're going to work with the right thoughts first. So when we have right thoughts, you have to believe in yourself and believe you have the power to succeed. Because some of that may have been damaged in the past few months, especially if you were laid off and you've experienced several months of being out of work. You have to reboot yourself and believe in the power that you have as an individual to succeed. And I would tell you that the right thoughts mean never say, "I can't." I learned this in a very embarrassing way. Several years ago, I decided to take up tennis. Now, I'm not a natural athlete, but I was going to try with this tennis. And I remember the very first lesson when the instructor showed us the forehand, and I said, oh, I can't do that. He showed us how to do the backhand, and I said, oh, I can't do that. Then he showed us how to toss the ball and how to serve. And I said, two-hand coordination? I can't do that. He stopped the whole lesson. I mean, it was a beautiful sunny day, but there was not a bird singing. There were no kids in that park. It was deathly silent. And he said, Karla, did you realize that to everything I have shown you today, you have said, I can't? I don't say that anymore. I say, I'm practicing, I'm learning, I'm getting better, but I don't say, I can't. Now, this was reinforced just the other day when I saw an interview of Matthew McConaughey. He has a new book out, and you may have seen it already. It's called Green Lights. But I was intrigued by this interview that he gave, because he said, yeah, there were two things that I got a whooping for when I was young. One of them was for saying, I hate you. And the other one was for saying, I can't. Now, that was a pretty novel idea for me, to teach a child that young never to say, I can't. And that's what I would bring to you today, is to believe in yourself and believe that you can do the things that are ahead of you. Now, this is another little illustration that's just my own proprietary thoughts on this. I believe that the negative and the positive run side by side. They run parallel every single day. And you cast the deciding vote, whether you're going to be a positive person or a negative person. Now, I have these two magnets representing the pole on each side. And by the way, my engineer son says that this wouldn't work, that this is all, theory up there. So we're just going to play with it a little bit. Because what I want to bring to your attention is that the positive pull is trying to get to you, but you have built a wall of negativity. You have built a wall of believing that I can't do that. And you feel this rejection. You feel fear at trying things. You use your destructive self-talk. You feel distress. You perceive situations in a negative way. You don't control what you can control. And you feel a lot of anger and sorrow. Well, the positive is not going to get to you if you've built this wall of negativity. And in the same way, if you have a wall of self-worth built where you believe about yourself, you can use a little humor, you have a good attitude about life, you can relabel things, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes. You have a positive viewpoint, you make good choices, you control what you can control, and you know how to relax. Then you have this wall of self-worth that comes in, and it stops the negative from getting to you, or that negative pull. Now, on the other side, you see some arrows. And what I would tell you about this is when the positive is pulling on you to go to the positive side of life, you are sending out good vibes. You're sending out positive vibes. You're sending out vibes that say, I don't care what's happened to me, I am going to overcome. And as you do that, positive things will start coming to you. Because when you put positive things out there in the marketplace, in the universe, and your neighborhood, around your friends, around your family, positive things will return to you. So, right thoughts again. Now let's talk about some coping skills that you can have. One is psychological filters. Now, I don't know how many of you have had a camera, one of those expensive cameras that have lenses and filters on them. But it's like, beep, beep, move over reality. Here come my psychological filters. Because with your lenses and the different filters you have, you can make the world look more sunny and bright, or you can make it look more dark and stormy. And whatever you filter, and your filter becomes your reality. Now, Albert Ellis brought us this psychological filter concept. He said that you have an activating event, plus you run it through your psychological filters, and that equals your coping response. And your filters are all the beliefs that you have about the world. It's all the expectations you have for this point of time. And none of us None of us expected what happened in 2020. I was so looking forward to 2020. Who thought that 2019 would be the good old days? I certainly didn't. So how are we evaluating this experience that we've had with COVID-19 and with 2020? How are we evaluating that? And then are we equating it to past experiences we've had? Are we thinking that we can get over it? Are we expecting to come out of this? What are the beliefs and the expectations that you have? And there's one other little component there, and I don't know any of your personalities, but you probably have learned that there's some personalities that tend to have a more optimistic view of life, and some that have a darker view of life. So you run it through all of these things, and then you get your coping response, whether you're depressed, whether you're sad, whether you're thinking that I can learn from this. I'm seeing this as an opportunity. That's your coping response. Now, let me illustrate it just another way. Let's take two kids in high school, and they're in a trigonometry class. They have a test coming up, and one student has studied and studied and studied. Oh, they're just praying for a 100 because they want this on their, when they go to college, they've got to have this grade to get into the college they want. The other student, gee, if I get an 80 on this test, I'm going to be fine. So they both get 90s. Okay, so the test was the activating event. They both get 90s. Now they're running it through their filters. The student that wanted a 100 is going, oh, I'm so depressed about this. I don't know what happened. I really studied. And a student that was going to be happy with an 80 and gets a 90, that student's going, yay, yay. Who would have thought? Me, I got a 90. So you see how the event run through your filters gives you the coping response. And so we have to be looking at all the filters that we are using now to look at 2020. The next one is that you have to use your power of choice. Now, when something negative happens to you, you have pure emotion. I'll give that to you, okay? And then you come to this where you can go to opportunities or you can go to obstacles. I thought the K was a great graphic, plus my name starts with a K, so you can remember that. But here you have opportunities. So, and I'm sorry that is off there. It's supposed to say, this is a learning experience for me. And the obstacle is supposed to say a pity party, okay? I'm not sure what happened to that, but anyway, I apologize for that. So when something negative happens to you and do you say, well, this is an opportunity for me to learn? It's an opportunity for me to reevaluate. Is that what you're saying in your head? Because if so, you're going on an upward trajectory to better things. But if you're thinking that this is a huge obstacle and you're turning into a pity party, then you're going down into depression. And you do not want to do that, okay? So experience that pure emotion and then choose to see this as a learning experience or as an opportunity for growth. And you need to, because you can choose your viewpoint. I love this graphic. It's kind of interesting and an impossible, but do you see the world as, half empty or half full? And when I want to tell you about choice and tell you that you have the power of choice, you might say, I want you to think for just a second, what is something that you hate to do? Now, there's lots of things that I hate to do. I sometimes hate to cook. I sometimes hate to load the dishwasher. I sometimes hate to take my clothes to the dry cleaner. But, there's lots of things. Maybe you have children and you hate to do the homeschooling right now, or you have babies and you hate to change the diapers. So get something in your head that you hate to do, okay? Just take a minute, visualize it so that you can feel those negative emotions coming into your body. Visualize that. And now, if you've got that visual in your mind and you feel that hate coming in, those negative emotions, now I want you to say, I choose to. Do you feel a release of those negative emotions? This is a fabulous tool for you. I promise it works because it changes you from a victim of having to do something to a powerful person to be able to say, I choose to do this. Even if you have to choose to speak to an irritating teammate. I know in several companies I've worked in, there's always been someone, I like to call them Pat Always Right. And if you choose to have a difficult conversation with Pat Always Right, instead of saying, I have to have that conversation, if you choose to have that conversation, you'll be in a better frame of mind and you'll have a better outcome of that discussion. Now, the third one I'd like to bring to you is to take action. I believe that you have the power to take action, or you have to know when to let go. And we need both of them in 2020 in this environment that we're in. I want you to take direct action on what you can and then learn to let go. So you can see here in this upper left-hand quadrant, you have control and action. That's a very powerful quadrant. And I have the weights there because if I were lifting weights, I would want to take action on one side and let go on the other. So let me explain it a little more. If you can take control of anything that's happening to you, do it. That makes you a powerful person. Then on the upper right-hand side, you have control. You could take control, but you take no action. This is where we get the whiners of life. Now, I can drive into my driveway. I look to the left, and there's my flower bed, and there's all those weeds. And I say to myself, gee, I wish my husband would pull those weeds. Gee, I sure wish we had the money for a gardener. Why did God make weeds? Now, what am I doing? I'm whining because I could get out and pull the weeds myself. So whiners become unhappy people. Then you have action and no control. So this is where you get burnout and increased anger because you don't have any control over it. You keep taking action. You keep pushing for something that will not happen. And I think if you look at your life, there's probably many of things that you just need to say, that's not going to happen. And there's so many things we have to let go of in 2020, right? It doesn't do us any good to keep being angry about it. So if you keep pushing when you have no control, that's where you get neurotic people. And then you have the other end of the weights that we're lifting, where you let go and move on. And I believe that's where you have smart people because they realize they can't change it and they take the steps to let go. And I must tell you, letting go is fiercely hard. I guess I could use that. And I have a little technique for you that kind of goes along with my cartoons here to help illustrate things. But this is what I call the dandelion technique. Because when I was growing up, there were dandelions on our yard, and I used to, if you put them up to your chin and it turned your chin yellow, then you were in love. But also when they went to seed, it was so much fun to just blow the seeds away. And what I thought in my head is that what if we were to let all the frustrations of the day, all the things that we need to let go of, all the things that, some of those things don't really matter. Now, some things that happen to us, you have to learn to let go every day because it's that deep of a hurt. But what if we let the frustrations of the day just be these little dandelion seeds, and at night, or when you're starting that relaxation, when you're coming out of the fight or flight and you're coming down, just let those frustrations just blow them away like they're dandelion seeds. And I happen to think that you'll feel a lot better. Now, one other experience or one other one that I want to share with you is to relabel. And I alluded to this up in our other, when we were going through how your emotions and your actions and things play on your body. And your this is also about your choice that you can make. And I read this in a book called Kicking Your Stress Habit. And it was an amazing experience for me to think that you could relabel experiences. The book said that you label everything, every experience that happens to you, you label it. You label it as good, bad, awful, wonderful. And if you don't like the stress that label is causing, just relabel it. Now, that really sounded like, can that work? When I read that, and I was driving down a road close to us called Lake Lucerne Road, and I was angry. I don't remember what I was angry about, but I was angry. And, usually we don't remember what we're angry about. except in 2020, we can remember what we're angry about. But I was driving down the road and I was angry, and this little voice said to me, Karla, just relabel it. It's like, no, I want to be angry just a little longer. So maybe you've had that experience too. But when we talk about it, if you have a fight with your spouse or your partner, do you label that as bad? Or do you say, whoa, that sure cleared the air? And then you get a stern look from the boss. Do you say, what a grouch? Or do you say, nah, she's just preoccupied today? Or if it rains when you had an outing planned, do you say the day's ruined? Or do you say, oh, we can relax and read, we can play Scrabble, we can do something inside? So whichever label you are attaching is going to give you your coping response. I want you to remember that. Okay, so as we go now to the next little portion, we want to talk about the right actions. So we've talked about how your thought process is and how you have to believe in yourself and you have to believe that you can make 2021 better, okay? Now, when we come to the right actions, I want to encourage you to start the planning process. And when you plan, when you plan your days, when you plan what you want to do, when you plan how you're going to get out of this funk that we're in 2020, you need to use some time management principles, like having a master task list for what are your goals for 2021? And what am I going to do today? What kind of a daily task list am I going to make? And do I have some goals for what I'm going to achieve this week? But because you have to have clear deadlines and target dates to really move yourself forward. And I use this picture of this young lady all twisted up because I think that's the way we all feel when it comes to managing our time and our goals and where we want to go. Because remember, pretty quick, 2021 January is coming. And of course, we're going to all be writing these goals for the year. I like to say you should write objectives, okay? And think about things in small chunks, not these 12 goals for 2021, but that's another topic. And the reason that I tell you this is that we're not powerless in the face of uncertainty. We are not powerless. But in your planning, you do have to have a plan A and a plan B and a plan C. That's why I suggested that you reevaluate your entire life. You know, where am I going? Is this the track I want? Do I need to change careers? Because this is a good time to do it if that's what you want to do. So you have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, maybe a plan D, a plan F, because you don't know which door of opportunity will open for you. But if you're planning, you're setting goals, you're reaching out with positiveness into the universe there, a door will open for you. But we don't know which one it is. Now, in the last few minutes that we spend together here before we take questions, I'd like to tell you a story about Charles Schwab. Now, I have taught a lot of time management classes, a lot of goal setting classes, a lot of classes on how you get to where you want to go. And when I started to study the formal literature of time management, by the way, I was always the girl that had the to-do list stamped on my forehead when I was in the 7th grade. But when I started to study all of the formal literature of time management, I found one story that was in almost every single book I read. And that was the story of Charles Schwab. And he was the president of Bethlehem Steel. And he wanted to get more done with his time. So he called in a consultant named Ivy Lee. And he promised to pay him any fee within reason. Now, wouldn't that make a consultant's eyes get huge? Yeah, it would. Now, Lee observed Charles Schwab, and he gave him this advice. Before you leave, and I added stop, because so many of us are working remotely now. Before you leave or stop work, make a list of everything you have to do the next day. Doesn't this sound like a master task list to you? Well, it is. So, why do you do it before you leave work or before you stop work? Well, you want to capture unfinished tasks while they're fresh on your mind. Because I promise you that you can make a list for tomorrow of what you want to do and what's going to bring you satisfaction and what's going to lead you forward. But I sincerely doubt that you will get everything done on that list. So the things that weren't finished, you need to capture them while they're fresh in your mind. Because if you don't, you have to wake up the next day and use mental energy and time to figure out where you ended. So that's very important that you capture these unfinished tasks and write down what is called next steps. And why do you leave it before you? Why do you do it before you leave or stop work? Well, you close the door on work and open the door to your personal life, because hopefully your personal life is one of those things that's going to help you relax. Now, I never look this sparkling fresh when I leave work, but perhaps if we follow this regimen, we can. So one other reason, why do you do it before you leave or stop work? Well, you permit complex tasks to cook on the back burner during, quote, your downtime. And I don't know about you, but it's amazing. Sometimes I'll just think, I don't know what to do about this. I don't know how to solve this problem. I could go this way, I could go that way. And so I let it cook. I sleep on it. And when I wake up the next morning, it's quite amazing because I have an answer. I know what to do. And that's what will happen to you when you let things cook on the back burner. Then going to step 2, that was a pretty lengthy step 1, right? Step 2 says, identify your top 5 or 6 items you must complete tomorrow. And so this process starts the prioritizing process. So you have your 5 or 6 top things. Then Ivy Lee said, identify the number 1 task you need to complete and commit to doing it first thing in the morning. So there's 2 parts to that. 1 is to identify that number 1 task, and 2 is to commit to doing it first thing in the morning. So this is if you're putting off brushing up your resume, if you're putting off calling that potential a person that could hire you, do it first in the morning when you're strong. When you start work the next morning, start on this number 1 task and stick with it until you're finished. Even if you get interrupted, I want you to go back and finish it, because you get that rush, you get that exuberance that I actually finished something today. I got something done. And that's good for your whole personality. Then he says, when you are finished, reprioritize the list and go to item number 2. And you complete the list in this manner. And this is such good advice. Now, Ivy Lee told him, when it works for you, give it to your men. When it works for your men, pay me what you think it's worth. 6 months later, Ivy Lee got a check for $25,000. And that was a lot more money in 1930 than it is today. And Charles Schwab told him it was the single most important thing he had ever learned. Now, that is not brain surgery, but it takes self-discipline. And as you have these problems and you're wondering which door to open, make some lists, plan it out. Make sure that when you get up in the morning, you're tackling that number 1 thing that will bring you closer to success in 2021. And you'll be amazed at what happens if you follow this Charles Schwab and Ivy Lee story. So when we come here with this winning formula, I think you can see that we have the right thoughts plus the right actions. And that's what's going to bring you success in 2021, even though we've had all these twists and amazing turns in 2020. And I'd like to just close this out or bring to you one other thing here. This book, As a Man Thinketh, was transformational for me to read. And it's public domain now. It was written by James Allen in 1903. And he says in there that you can break free of difficult circumstances. And then he gives many things that you can do to break free of these difficult circumstances. And I've made it available to you. If you could send an email to me, I will send that to you as a PDF. And he tells you that it's your thought process that makes the difference of how you break free of difficult circumstances. And in that book, he says that the mind is the master weaver, both of the inner garment of character and the outer garment of circumstance. So what he's saying there is that what you're thinking in your head is what's going to bring you success. And he says in this book that the oak sleeps in the acorn. I don't know if you've experienced this, but I did. We have an oak tree in our front yard, and one time I had this little oak that was coming up in my flower bed, and I pulled it up, and there was that acorn at the bottom. I mean, it was such a visual to me. It's like I wish I could have been a photographer and taken a picture of it. But yeah, the mighty oak that grows so big and tall comes from that itsy bitsy teeny acorn. And in a similar way, you know, the bird waits in the egg. And so as we start this journey into 2021, you know, what is inside of you? We don't know. Maybe if this is an opportunity for you to reorient your life and to do something that you really love to do and to change all that, then it could be seen as an opportunity. It could be seen as a blessing. Not to minimize the trauma that you have of losing your job and the income and all of those changes. I don't mean to say that at all or to make light of that. But I'm just saying that as you look to 2021, you need to be able to believe in yourself and to make plans and to explore and to look at all the different avenues that might be open to you. Because what he says in that book is you cannot travel within and stand still without. And I would just like to tell you that life leaps like a geyser for those who are willing to drill through that rock of inertia. And right now, I feel that there's a lot of inertia going on. It's like we don't know where to turn, we don't know what to do. But if we can be persistent, if we can talk with people, if we can ask people questions, if we can explore different avenues, but be determined that you're going to succeed. I promise you that you will succeed in 2021. You can purchase my book at Amazon, and I believe they put that in the chat window for you. But I believe there's time for some questions. Is that accurate, Julia?
Yes, we do have some questions coming in. One of the, actually a couple, the people didn't get to see your email to write it down. So could you let them know your email again real quickly?
Oh, of course. Let me go back to that right here. It's just my name. It's Karla at karlabrandau.com.
Okay.
And this is a wonderful book. I'll be so glad to send it to you. You can read through it and you'll be inspired.
Yes. Definitely an inspiring message that you had for us. One of the questions was, how do you stay positive around negative or depressed people?
Ooh, that's a tough one because I know sometimes we live with people like that. But what I would say to you is you have to be responsible for your own, I don't know if psychic's the right word, but you have to be responsible for your own mental attitude. And when you're living with someone that's negative, in some ways you have to shield yourself. You can take walks to get into the beautiful, we're having beautiful fall weather here in Atlanta. And when I take a walk in the neighborhood or go down to the park, I feel so much better. And as you feel so much better and you come back, maybe that will rub off on that person that's being negative. Another thing you could do is to have a conversation with them. Now, some people are down or depressed because of what's happened to them, and you can talk through and you can, as we've been talking here, you can look at options of what can we do. The other thing is that some people, one personality style especially, feels depression deeper than others. And so you'll have to work a little harder to get that personality out of this depression or the feelings that they're having that it's hopeless. But if you can keep your psyche there and do things to make you feel better about life, then I believe you will have an effect on them. Now, just one other little tip here. Several years ago, we go through ups and downs in life, and we were having some extreme difficulties. And what we finally did to get ourselves out of a bad mood, my husband and I, is that we bought cartoon books, and we would sit at the dinner table and we would read cartoons to one another. And that helped us get out of some of the, the depression that we were feeling then. Does that help?
Yes, I think it definitely does. Here's another great question that we had. You talked about the master task list.
Mm-hmm.
How do you separate and prioritize work tasks and projects with personal tasks and projects? I know a lot of people are working from home, so you get that. You get the blend of business or the work from home, and then you're also the home thing that needs done at the same time. How do you separate that?
Yeah, that's really tough. What I do on my own personal side is that, there's a couple of things you can do. If you use electronic programs, then you could have a separation of them. I believe that you want to have, let's see if we can clarify this. There's different ways you can do it. I suggest that you have one list for all of the work things you have to do, but then right at the bottom, you're going to have the personal things. Now, if there's a personal thing that is important, like a doctor's appointment or a child's assignment at school that they have to do, then that needs to go right intermixed with your work. That's my belief anyway, because as you're working through your day, as you're working through your task list, if you're working from home, these things are merged in with you. And, there's nothing we can do about that, especially if you're homeschooling your kids. You've got all of that going on. And by the way, it's like I give homage to those people that are homeschooling their kids through all of this. But so I would keep a list. And if it's electronic, it's easy. For instance, if you use Microsoft Outlook, you can have times in the day, like you could have in the morning blocks of times, like at 9 o'clock, I know what I'm going to be doing here, at 10 o'clock, and then at noon, I'm going to stop. And then you can open it up and make a few lists of the personal things you have to do. And so in this way, you can keep track of them all. But what I would not do, let's say this, is have one list of home stuff written on a piece of paper way over here or on the kitchen counter, and another list in my office, because you'll forget what's on each list. I believe you have to have them together in the same way. And so I would block them at the top of the list for business and the bottom of the list for home. And this way you can go through and check them off. And I know that there's so many digital tools, but I have to tell you that a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen still work for your lists. So is that helpful to you?
Yes, I believe that's definitely helpful. Here's another one. As a working mom, what is the best way we can manage everyone's expectations at home, work, school, and yet stay sane during these uncertain times?
I love that question because working moms are especially hard hit. Let me use it that way. And I'll have to, if you can laugh for a minute, I saw a cartoon the other day where the little boy was duct taped to the floor while the mother was working. Now, I hope you can see the humor in that. A working mom, I believe you have to lower expectations, meaning that you can't do everything to 110%. Because I believe working moms are people that are conscientious and they want to do things, they want to make their family happy, and they want to make their employer happy. And I think the prioritization there that you do is, number one, what do I have to do to a high 10? And what can be done to maybe 90%? Another thing you can think about here is how do you accept help from other people? How do you ask for help from other people? And what makes sense for you to hire someone else to do, and what makes sense for you to do yourself? Now, one of the things that's been quite a learning point during this COVID-19 is that grocery stores can deliver food to you. And I had one mother that had several children that said, boy, I'll never go to the grocery store again. And so she had made a decision to put that off as a working mom and let that be a way for her to find a little bit more time. And then when you have your children around you, you want to make sure that you have plenty, that you've planned. I was going to say the word plan forward. And this is another thing for a working mom. This process of sitting down before you leave work or before you go to bed and planning what's happening the next day is critical for you, because you have to make sure that the clothes are laid out, that the meals are planned, and if you do that the night before, it's going to be so easier than just hitting it cold at 5 o'clock. But so you plan the day and you plan what activities the kids are going to be doing, and you plan that in advance the night before. And I think that would be a great way for you to. I think that would be a great way for you to manage the different demands that are on you, because working moms have. It's like, I remember a time when I thought that there were thousands of people and they all wanted a piece of me, and that's the way a working mom is, because you have all the colleagues at work and you have neighbors and you have kids, and you have to make sure that the kids' friends are taken care of, that they're in the house or whatever. I know we haven't had many over the quarantine, but as the quarantine goes away, you have all these different things that are happening to you. So I would just take a deep breath, take the pressure off yourself, say, not everything's going to be a high 10 today, a high 110% today. I'm going to choose those things that aren't quite as needy as a high 10%. Like maybe I don't have to mop the floor a high 10%, or maybe I hire someone to come in and mop the floor and clean the toilets. So these are all choices that you make, but you have to take the pressure off of yourself that you can do everything to a high 110%, because you can't. But I have another little tip for you. There's some things that you have to do to a high A, okay? And because this goes back to the 80-20 rule. 80% of the things you do don't really bring you the results you want. It's the 20% that you have to focus on, whether that's your children in that 20% or some of your work projects. And when I heard this 80-20 rule, it's like, I can break that. And I tried really hard. To make more than just 20% of the things that I do be, that high 10% that's going to be the payoff. And what I learned is that there's some B tasks in there that support the A tasks. And so that's 30%. So, gee, we're doing good here. And then I found out that there's a 20% that you can't really, there's a 20% that you have to have there, because it's giving empathy to people. It's taking time for people that are down, or time for that extra time for that person that's depressed, extra time for that child that needs help. That's 20% of your day. And you have to have that. Those are the things that are intangibles that you don't know how long it's going to take. So here, now, if you have the 20% that's really effective, I'm churning stuff out at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then you have the time when you're planning and you're closing out your day, and this is your 30% when you're getting that 20% ready to tackle. And then you have this 20% of the intangibles that you're helping people and that you're giving of your soul and of your life. Do you see how that comes out to be 70% of your time? And you'll be incredibly successful if you can do that. Then you have that 30% that are actually time wasters. And that's when I say you hire somebody, you bring them in, you ask for help, you do all of these things that will help you cope with being a working mom. But my hat is off to you. And you will have a wonderful life if you can release some of the pressure on yourself to be everything to everyone, because that doesn't work. You need to reserve some time for yourself and take care of yourself. I hope this helps.
Definitely does. Could you speak a little bit about working families? We have a lot of families out there that have, both parents are working, and they could possibly both be working from home, and you have the kids are being homeschooled, or maybe they're in a hybrid situation. So the parents are trying to help, with the school situation. They're both trying to work their jobs at home and take care of the house. Could you speak a little bit about maybe managing that situation?
Yes, that takes an extreme amount of coordination between the parents. And depending on the age of the children, once again, what I would recommend is that you take turns and know that you can get a lot of work done in 2 or 3 hours if you're not interrupted. So what I would suggest is that you have different offices in the home, different places that the spouses can go to work uninterrupted, but you would each take care of the kids like in maybe 1 hour or 2 hour increments, so that the children were still supervised. And then you would have specific things that the children would do during that time. And once again, you're going to have to make decisions on what you hire to get done, and like bring the food in, or there's different places that have meals that that are really quick to fix. I don't know if anyone has discovered the Instapot yet, but there's lots of things that can save you time on the menial and the regular things that happen in the house. But once again, to me, it's planning that day before so that you know what's going to happen the next day. And hopefully the spouses can work together to get all of their work done, and yet share the load of the children and the food and the housekeeping things that have to be done.
Well, thanks, Karla. This has been so great, very enlightening and helpful. A couple of people have asked about the recording, and it will be up tomorrow, so you can rewatch this if you didn't catch all of the PowerPoint slides. And just thank you so much for your time. And as Karla mentioned, you can feel free to reach out to her on her email, and her book is available on Amazon. So thank you so much, and we really appreciate your time.
It was a pleasure to be with you, and I just wish you all the best in the world, that you can use these tactics and these techniques and enjoy the holidays, but yet plan for 2021 and make it the most successful year yet. It's a challenge, but we're up to a challenge. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.